I actually do feel conflicted about that because I do feel at the end of my interim that not as many students as I would hope have taken away the kind of experience that myself and my interim partner worked so hard to try and create. And that's very unfortunate. But I do think there are other students on my interim trip who do take away that. And you know, we do the best we can. But I do, you know, you're asking me if I'm sitting on the fence. I think I made reference earlier to the fact that I do believe there is a real question. I mean, if you look at the mission statement of the school, I think we probably would be hitting more of what the intention of the school is if we focused more time and resources on bettering the community around us than, say, going off and bettering an exotic locale, as Edmund has said. Now, in both of those situations, we are definitely doing something that's good. The question is, would it maybe be better if we could focus more of that around? I think we would have a much greater effect here in Hong Kong and its surrounding area than we might, you know, helping a Palestinian refugee camp in Jordan.
Particularly since we could go back and back and back, which is, I think, the concept of SOS is.
Yeah.
Edmund, you wanted to?
Yes, I do. I don't know about my fellow guests, but I have been on 2 Hong Kong interims, and the furthest I've traveled is Japan. And I think that I don't think that the HK interims are any less worthwhile to go on than you know, overseas interims. In that in that there I don't see that there should be more improvement, because people associate, you know, an HK interim with, you know, a boring interim, like you're in Hong Kong anyways. But most of that talk is said by those who haven't been on an HK interim, and I don't think that you get anything less, that you're like shortchanged if you go on an HK interim.
Why don't you give us an example? Because I think one of the ones you've been on was the refugee run.
Yes, and in the refugee run we designed a form of the refugee run from Crossroads that was for upper and lower primary students, and I think that experience in itself was worthwhile, seeing that there's a museum in America which is eager to take on the simulation and run it for students in the Boston area. And I don't think that, you know, people who go to Australia, for example, to not even do service, just to there used to be an interim that people would go to Melbourne to surf, and I don't think that that experience was any better than what we've done here in HK.
Call me selfish, but personally speaking, I would not be less happy to be organizing a refugee run in, I think you guys were in the middle school, high school, than, for example, going to, a few years back, went to Australia to see the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, we can say that because of all these reasons, sustainability, one of them, that, I mean, we want to perhaps switch all the interims to Hong Kong interims, but in the end, if the general desire is to not do that, to go to other places and do other things and see things that we can't do in Hong Kong, I mean, is there a problem with that? If we accept the fact that, yes, this is not environmentally sustainable.
Well,
but
there is no problem with wanting to go to overseas interims, like Mr. McCaughey said, but there is always the fact that people do not get a lot out of these interims, in that I believe Mr. McCaughey once said that when they were driving through the Jordanian landscape, that most people had earphones on and they were sleeping. I don't think that is worthwhile. If you are going there for a culture trip, then you might as well immerse yourself in the culture.
So basically what you're saying is we ourselves do not behave in a way worthy of us.
Yeah, if you want to go on an overseas interim to see new cultures, then why don't you do so instead of being antisocial?
That's quite a radical statement. And would our fellow students in the room agree with this? Like, do you see everyone not appreciating the chance they have on their interims?
Yeah, I do see that a bit, but like to counter your point, when you're on like a 4-hour bus ride, I think sometimes you can't look out the window for 4 hours straight. Just in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you make it an unabashed statement that even though you know that the environment is under danger...
Well, we know the environment's under danger.
And you still want to go and pollute the earth because of your willy-nilly adventures...
But we've always known that, Martin, and yet for the past 4 years, you and I have gone on interims.
This is precisely what we are trying to discuss here, if we're going to make a change. If we use our precedent that we have gone and polluted the earth before, so we're going to continue polluting in the future, then there's no use discussing anything. If we're going to be unabashed about our polluting the earth, because for the sake of
what I'm asking you, is there a problem with being unabashedly polluting the earth as I suppose as a school and as a person? Do you see a major problem with that?
Yes, I do see a major problem with that.
Martin, I'm interested in how far you would take this, because we live in an international community, and most of our parents and our families are on airplanes a tremendous amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the school, I'm not saying that's an excuse for us not to do anything, but I'm just wondering how far you would take this. Should we all be going home and telling our families that we're not going to fly here and we're not going to fly there, because what's the purpose of that? I flew to Taiwan over Chinese New Year to see my family. I shouldn't have done that. You know what I'm saying? At some point, the way the world is right now,
that you fly.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
If there are, and again, this brings me back to the idea of conflicting interests, right? I don't think it's wrong for me to go and see my family in Taiwan, and everything that occurs with that. But on the other hand, I feel, a pang of guilt that I'm flying to do that. And should we all be trying to minimize our impact, or should we all be trying to eliminate it because it's just evil?
I mean, as I was saying earlier, if we could find equivalent interims in Hong Kong that are equivalent value to the ones that we do get rid of, then I would see it justified that if we're going to get the same value of an experience in Hong Kong than we do abroad, I think it justifies that we do not fly there anymore, and with the added bonus of it being environmentally friendly. If we continue to fly elsewhere, perhaps a road forward would be for people who go on those interims to pay more to offset their carbon. Perhaps that money would go to buying tracts of rainforest, or protecting or buying carbon credit, or something like that, and that would discourage people to fly abroad monetarily, I suppose.
And in terms of extending this even farther, I mean, I walk out of the front door of this school every day and I see SUVs with one driver picking up one student idling, and I see many of them, they create a traffic jam, they're rude, besides affecting the environment. How many of us are going to give up our drivers? How many of us are going to give up, are we going to take public transit to get here? Are going to do some walking? How many of us, right now we're picking on interim, and I think it's an open question. I think it's a good question to ask, and we can minimize its impact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But how far are we going to take this?
Well, I mean, even in the lower primary, as you
may know, the entire Repulse Bay.
The Repulse Bay campus is being made to have compulsory busing. I think that's a great idea, and I mean, I read the reports, and they have said that they're completely congested during the school hours, during the pick-up and drop-off hours. Maybe that's one way forward. I mean, the school has to make a stand to force people, if they're not willing, to make that commitment. And if the school is willing, if the school is going to uphold that commitment to be sustainable, as you said, if it's part of the mission of the school to be sustainable, then perhaps the school should be someone that's making the stand and not leaving it up to the individual parents and